800-951-0592. Final day today on 10th ounce American Gold Eagles. 1 through 9 at 245, 10 or more at 240. Gold is up again. Not a lot, up by about $3 here, 1857. I think Kitco has it down, but that had to do with Friday. By the way, if you missed Friday, big rally in gold on Friday. And then remember, New York closes, but then electronic trade still stays open. Gold rallied about $8, $9, $10 in the electronic trade. So that's the difference. What Kitco's got it down a little bit. I'm telling you, it's up a little bit. Doesn't matter. Gold over 1856 right at this moment on the April contract. I got silver pretty much unchanged, $21.10. Same scenario there. But 10th ounce American Gold Eagles, we're leading the country here at this price, 1 through 9, 245. Some places I think you can get them for about $255 to $260, but you got to buy 1,500 of them. I think maybe 500 of them, but a lot of them. Here, 1 through 9, we're at 245. Just buy 10 or more. Heck, we'll do it at 240 at 800-951-0592. Of course, we're going to get jobs this week, Jason, because the first full week of March. So we'll get on Wednesday, we'll get ADP. So Tuesday and Wednesday, we get Jay Powell. Wednesday, ADP. Thursday, jobless claims. Remember, we've been talking about jobless claims. Historic lows on jobless claims. And then, of course, on Friday, we're going to get the government's jobs number. And, Jason, I would probably say that's probably right now the last outlier in everything. We know everybody's reporting retailers slow, housing dead, used cars, new cars slow to dead. Now, all of a sudden, the one thing that isn't is still those jobs, right? So that's still been the outlier. Is it going to become less of an outlier? If it does, and I don't know that it will, but if it does, that's going to be the next catalyst for the gold price.
And I think the job losses are already starting to stack up. It's just different than it's been before. I think they're just cutting the frost off the top. I mean, the tech companies, they're all firing people. It's just not a whole lot. And I think it's still an adjustment because they don't want to, like we said before, it's hard to get good employees, Joe. So, you don't want to get rid of everybody. If you think in your mind, they're not listening to this show. Hey, it'll come back. We don't want to get rid of all this stuff. We got to keep. So I think they're just cutting hours, Joe. I think they're cutting hours. There's a lot of part-time work going on. And so the jobs numbers aren't showing it, but I think there's people working less hours. So it's here. It's just moving slowly.
Well, today Airbnb announced they're laying off 30% of their recruitment staff. Of course, we reported it here. It was a bust. Super Bowl and the Open, the big golf tournament. The Airbnbs were over 50% empty here, and it's just that another one of those signs that things are slowing down. Right? People don't have that money to spend. It's going to be interesting what happens to a lot of these Airbnbs, right? Because that's been a big revenue source for a lot. Are those homes now going to hit the market? I think that's going to be the next question.
Yeah, that could be a big part of a housing slowdown, Joe. The people that have the second or the third home that they're trying to make money off it with the Airbnb. If that's not paying off, Joe, then yeah, that's what do? You have to sell it, right? Unless you can make those payments. Right. So maybe once again happening slowly, Joe, maybe, right?
Yeah, very much so. Again, the 10-year note got all the way to 4.1. It's come back a little. I mean, right now 3.96. But again, I think everyone's waiting for what Jay Powell has to say over the next couple of days. I'm really now convinced we're getting rate hikes in March. We're getting them in May. We're probably going to get it in June. Now you even got to think about could it be August and Jason, even beyond. This is how far the Fed may be behind.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I get this. You heard me in the last few weeks. I think it's a quarter point all the way through the year. They just keep on slowly building it. I think they could take a position of we're doing something about it, but we're not going to overreact. I think that's going to be it. Maybe he'll come up with a new word. It's interesting. Right. He did disinflation 1 week before the CPI came out. Now here he is again 1 week before the CPI. What word will he concoct this time? I think he's going to try to stay a little quieter this time.
You know what's so funny is, when are they going to react? I guess that's really it, right? How bad does it have to get? How much longer do we have to have this high inflation, right? I mean, because again, listen, inflation only punishes us. That's who it punishes, right? And again, them sitting there, who are they really protecting? That's really what I want to know. Who are you protecting? Because you're not protecting me. You're not protecting our listeners, right? All they're protecting is their precious little banking system. And Jason, let's face the facts. They know they're in the corner. They know there's no good outcomes. They're hoping now they come out and try to, maybe if we say inflation's lower, then maybe it'll actually go down. Well, that didn't work. They tried, but that didn't work. Believe it or not, apparently you got to do a whole lot more than talk to actually affect inflation.
You know, Joe, I was looking at some inflation historical numbers over the weekend, and the M2 money supply increased. It goes back even like 30 years, back to the early 90s. And it's interesting. Remember how they recalculated inflation? You know, it's kind of half. Since the 1990s, our M2 money supply has been essentially 5% a year. 5%, which essentially would be the actual inflation if they calculated from the 1980s. So it makes me wonder, Joe, if they're going to start at some point during this next business cycle, are they going to recalculate inflation again? And the inflation will now be a higher permanent number. You know, they want 2%, right? Which is more like 5%. Well, if the M2 money supply is 5% and the inflation really is just the amount of money in circulation, then they want more money in circulation. They want inflation to look different, right? So what are they going to do, Joe? These new terms, and the recession last year wasn't a real recession. It was negative growth, but it wasn't a real. They're changing everything, Joe. So why do I get the feeling that we're going to recalculate inflation? The M2 money supply, they're going to print more than that. They did that in 2020 and 2021. They printed a lot of money. This inflation's here for a long time, I think, Joe.
Yeah, and again, one of the other things, we'll talk about it. You know what? People don't have the adjustable rate mortgages like they used to, which means the Fed has a harder time fighting the inflation. We'll talk about that when we return. Hey, we're back here, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. And here on this Monday, we got a lot going on. Jason and I are blowing up our chat rooms here. Want to thank Joey for joining us today. We got gold up a few bucks here. Silver's unchanged. The Dow's up 100 points. The S&P's up 24. The Nasdaq's up 100. Oil's up, gold's up, the bond market, the yields are actually just went positive or higher. So we're getting ready, obviously, for Jay Powell to talk. You're looking for another way to have some money not tied into Wall Street. Check out our friends at Invest Y Refi. This is the private student loan area. These are private student loans that defaulted. So these are people, you got to remember, you got two guys. You got the federal student loan, you got the private student loan, right? The federal, I think you can get $5,000 a year on the government side of things. Well, obviously, college costs a heck of a lot more than $5,000. So a lot of people get these private loans. Well, the private loans is like 70% of all private loans come with a cosigner. So mom or dad, grandma and grandpa, whoever it may be. And unfortunately, just like the federal loans, you can't get rid of them. Of course, it's ridiculous that the banks loan you. Could you imagine if you did, I don't know, $10,000 a year, you got $40,000 a student loan in 4 years, and you didn't land that job right away. They don't care. They'll just put you right into default. You get sent to collections, and essentially you can't even become a productive member of society because you can't get rid of it. Well, why refi? They're like, wait a minute. Just because the banks say you're no good, let's take another look. Let's take another look. And all these people that are in default, they contact Why Refi, and Why Refi says, hey, let's see if we can help, right? Do you have a job? Show us your income, right? We're going to run your credit. We know your credit score stinks, but we're going to do it. Let's look at it. And if you actually got charged a reasonable rate of return, a reasonable rate on making a payment, could you make a payment and be a productive member? And guess what they found? Not all of them. Listen, not all of them, but a lot of these people can. If somebody would just give them the opportunity, and that's what Why Refi does. And of course, they buy the debt from the collection agency for pennies on the dollar. That's how they can give you guys such a great rate of return, up to 10.25%. And guess what? The average person that Why Refi is helping has their entire student loan debt paid off in a little over 8 years. It's almost like a new car loan, right? About the same, right? As long as it takes you to pay off a new car loan, they get their entire student debt paid off. And guess what? You are the reason why. You got to have at least $50,000 to invest. You get up to 10.25% return. It's not correlated to Wall Street. Why Refi does not give a crap what words Jay Powell invents. They don't care. Doesn't matter. Check them out. Invest. Whyrefi.com. The word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or 888-Y-REFI-24 as another avenue, Jason. Like I said, I think it's going to be an interesting week this week with Jay Powell testifying and the jobs numbers coming out. I think people are going to look, is there softness starting to come? And the one area where there hasn't been any, and that's jobs.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. So we'll keep monitoring it, and I think as this thing moves down the road and we start to see the market start to really show even more and more stress, because I'm seeing banks. I forgot the name of the bank. I was just looking at it, going into default or having trouble making their payments. It's like one piece at a time, but it only takes a couple of these pieces before things really start to move faster. So we'll see how it works, Joe. I mean, we don't know who's getting money, like during 2019, the reverse repo or the repo market. Yep. They can always just give the money and try to float this boat a little further, can't they?
And one of the things that's different, and here's the big problem for them, is a lot of take housing as a prime example. See, they didn't have to go very far with rates. Remember, Janet Yellen tried to raise rates. It was already, not only was it already over by now, they were on their way back to zero already. But one of the big differences now is people that have bought homes, yeah, they may have overpaid, maybe, right, as prices are falling. But they're locked in at 4%, right? They're locked in at a decent rate, at a payment that they can afford. So the higher rate, does it affect them when they buy a car? Sure does. Does it affect them if they got credit card debt? Yep, it does. But they're not in these adjustable rate mortgages where all of a sudden my payment adjusts. And not to say not everybody, there are some that are, and those people are going to have to walk away from their house. It's just that simple. But the vast majority, at least this time, Jason, aren't in that adjustable rate, which also makes it harder for Fed to fight the inflation, right? Because guess what? I'm raising these rates, but it's not costing you any more on your biggest payment.
Well, and it takes a little time for the average person to have to adjust to what's going on. you know, this higher inflation, the inflation and the rate hikes is just 2022. The rate hikes and the higher cost of borrowing is essentially a 2022 situation. So not everyone needs a new credit card or a new loan within 1 year of these rate hikes, but it's coming, right, Joe? Every month, there's more and more people that need to borrow more and more money.
More. Yep. More and more people hey, I got to go get that car loan. More and more people, hey, I got to start using my credit card. That's when they're going to start feeling it. 800-951-0592. Final segment coming up. Eight 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Monday. Don't forget, 1/10 ounce American Gold Eagles, 1 through 9, $245, 10 or more at $240. This is the last day. This is so far below where anybody else is out there. Keep adding to it. We've got, you know what? We debated. We may do it later this week. But if you go out to allamericangold.com, another great interview with Catherine Austin Fitz. She gets right at it, right at the very beginning, talking about why the need to, as she calls it, to be able to bribe the guards. And she's talking about digital money this time. It's not about, the Holocaust and if you had gold and silver, you could get your family out. That's not what she's talking about this time. She's talking about when this digital money comes, Jason, hey, you're only going to be allowed. They're going to tell you what to buy and where to buy it from and how much of it you can buy. And you need to be able to bribe the guards. And what a great way to do it. 10th ounce American Gold Eagles. I said it last week. Listen, this is the most popular 10th ounce Gold Eagles have been since Y2K, Jason. And I think it's because people are getting it. Hey, I need to be able to bribe the guards, and 10th ounce Gold Eagles is a great way to do it.
Absolutely. I think for a lot of people that are new to gold and silver, and depending on if you're somebody that has a smaller budget, the 10th ounce Gold Eagle is such a great way to get your hands on some gold. Put it in your pocket, look at it, hold it. It's an amazing thing if you've never bought gold and silver. Once you actually get it and you're looking at it and you start to think more about it, and then you start to research it more. Hey, I've been listening to Joe and Jason a bunch, but let me go look somewhere else. And suddenly you're hearing the same information in many other places. And it's like, oh, okay, this is a known commodity. It's a known thing. And there's you're very much in a safe place when you're saving your assets, your money, your paycheck, that little piece that's saved. When you put it in gold and silver, it's going to keep its value more than just putting it in the bank, Joe, or in risky asset investments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, 10th ounce Gold Eagles, they're just that. They're 1/10 of an ounce. We call them the golden dime. They're the size of a dime. They come in these little mint tubes. There's 50 of them in a tube. So if you wanted to buy a tube of them, it'd be $12,000 for a tube of 1/10 ounce Gold Eagles. But you can. So it's a great opportunity. The price is fantastic. And the need to have this put away. Look at what Singapore. Still stumped that how last week the World Gold Council can say that they sold central banks bought 31 tons of gold in January, and then all of a sudden, fast forward to whoops. Sorry, we missed these 45 tons, right? We missed over half of the gold purchases. Jason, that just tells me I think there's a lot more gold being bought than they want to admit to.
Yeah, and there's a tremendous amount of buying.
I think they got burned. They thought, well, Singapore doesn't want people to know, and then Singapore made an official announcement, and they got caught. 800-951-0592. Listen, the half-empty cup of Joe is coming, and guess what? More evidence that the Department of Homeland Security has been spying on us for a long time. We're going to talk about that. Follow us, 1360khnc.com.